For some reason here, WWE actually has Bray Wyatt versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship as the big one, the main event of WrestleMania 33. This is the highest built match on the card. I do not think that this will main event the show. I think this will be somewhere tucked down in between. I don't know if maybe they think of the WWE Championship still as being the number one belt in the company, seeing how the Universal title was just named, even though it's on Monday Night Raw, just after SummerSlam. I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere the belts get swapped, a lot like in the draft when Batista and John Cena were flip-flopped, and basically the WWE Championship and the World Heavyweight title switched back in, I guess that would be 2005, maybe 2006, somewhere in the lineage back then. But, this match to me, honestly, has a big, just question mark after question mark. I guess this is the ultimate swerve, Vince Russo style storyline that, I sort of had thought that WWE had put behind them. But you have to go back to the fall, back before No Mercy, 2016, when Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton first started feuding. Honestly, I don't even remember what started this feud, but what seemed like it was just going to be another match on the No Mercy 2016 show ended up being the main eventer after, as what was passed around throughout the wrestling news sites was because of the fact that they were doing a presidential debate. And WWE felt that people weren't going to want to watch the No Mercy show. They decided that they were going to push the main event to being the first match of the show, putting John Cena versus Dean Ambrose versus AJ Styles for the WWE Championship as the first match, and then just sort of play on the rest of the show from there. They said that was the main event, even though it was the first match, and gave John Cena credit when he broke the record for most main events in WWE history or whatever it was. But, to me, honestly, the main event is what closes out the show and sends you thinking, I wonder what's going to happen on SmackDown. In that match, Luke Harper returned, costing Bray Wyatt to win the match over Randy Orton. Randy controlled most of the match, but just didn't come out as the winner there. And then, they go out of that show. They do a series of matchups where it's Randy Orton and Kane and going up against Luke Harper and Bray Wyatt. Out of the middle of nowhere, Randy Orton hits Kane with an RKO and joins up with the Wyatts. It's still never been revealed, but I was sort of kept thinking that when it came down to it in the end, that Randy and Luke were both in this together, seeing how they both popped up around No Mercy back then. But, since then we've seen Randy and Luke Harper fight, and I guess that wasn't just them play fighting and going back and forth at it. They were really going, and it was only Randy who had the master plan, I guess you can say, to take down Bray Wyatt by burning down the house. And that's what happened, is they won the tag team championships, and after losing them, everyone was entered into the Royal Rumble, where Randy Orton came out on top. For me, as soon as Randy won the match, the announcers were talking about the fact that Randy Orton had been freed. He was no longer under the spell of the Wyatts, and they kept going with the storyline, with Randy showing up on SmackDown, basically saying that because of his alliance to Bray Wyatt, he was not going to take the championship shot at WrestleMania. And to me, that was sort of like somebody came up with that in the meeting for SmackDown. All of a sudden, they're like, oh, it's a good idea, let's write that in. Even though you go back and you watch the Rumble and you see that celebration, Randy is nowhere under the spell of anybody, and he's just doing full-on babyface responses to everything that's going down. And to me, it was honestly like he was never fully fledged into playing that character. And I don't know if that's what the character was or what, but that's why I still don't buy into it till today. Because of the fact that Randy turned down the shot at WrestleMania, Bray Wyatt gave him the keys to the castle where he would show up the next week and burn the motherfucker to the ground. And that was supposed to kill off sister Abigail, which gave the powers to Bray Wyatt. But much like, with WWE and the history of The Undertaker, even though the urn is destroyed, there's always a way to go back in history with Marty and Doc McFly and, save the urn and, just sort of keep the storyline going. They're not going to kill off Bray Wyatt. But I really don't know what to think here. I would think that they're going to give Randy the championship. Every time Randy's in the title picture, it always seems like he hasn't had the title in such a long time. I would love for Bray to get the win. When Bray won the championship at Elimination Chamber, there were so many people who were thinking that this is going to be a huge moment. This is going to be the full-on push of Bray Wyatt that we've been waiting for. I think he's been in the company for 3 years, and it almost seems if Bray never was able to win the big one. I know that, in past videos, I've been corrected when I say, sarcastically, that it seems like Bray never wins pay-per-view matches. But in the way WWE does their pay-per-views, it seems like every feud is 3 months, where, one guy wins one, another guy wins the other, and then they have the rubber match. Well, what I was trying to say is that Bray never wins feuds, other than when he beat Dean Ambrose, I believe, at TLC a few years ago, and that got him ready for WrestleMania 31 with The Undertaker. Bray's got big moments, and you can tell that WWE thinks that Bray is the guy that they really care about, but they're never able to push him over the hump and make him into a major superstar. I'm not going to say that Bray Wyatt beating Randy Orton is going to go back and erase WrestleMania 30, which I believe is a place where they drew the line in the sand and then said that Bray Wyatt is a star, but Bray Wyatt is not that big of a star. When Bray didn't beat John Cena at WrestleMania, that is something that we could point back to in history of time and say that Bray won a big match. That was a huge match. That was the biggest match he'd been in at that time. And possibly even today, that's possibly the biggest match that Bray's still been into. We've seen Bray go at it, with The Undertaker. We've seen it go at it with Undertaker and Kane. We've seen him have, big match after big match and feud after feud. But that match against Cena, I think, is what made or break his career in WWE. I want to see him win. But to me, honestly, to make the prediction, I think that Randy's going to win, and Randy's going to win the title. And I don't know where they go from there, other than having rematch after rematch with Bray Wyatt. But if Randy comes out with the title, I'm not quite sure where they go from there. I would love to see Miz get a shot, like I talked about in the John Cena video. But that being an end to WrestleMania is a little bit weird to me. So I'm not quite sure what's going to close out. Honestly, in my mind, I think it's going to be Goldberg versus Brock. But then I have a heel, Brock Lesnar, beating Goldberg for the championship. And I don't know if that's the way that Vince is going to want to end his show. So, I don't know. I've talked about it in the past. This is sort of a ho-hum WrestleMania to me. I am excited to watch it. I am excited to, sit down and have some fun. But I'm not quite sure on where we go from here.